It's almost 5 years to the day since the launch of the CDJ-3000, so we were due to get a successor, and now it's here. First thing to point out, it's not a CDJ-4000, it's a 3000X. I think it's kind of important that, right from the jump, you temper your expectations and see this as more of an incremental upgrade from the 3000 rather than any kind of revolutionary new device, because if you don't, well, to be frank, you might be a little disappointed. I've had a pair of CDJ-3000X players in hand for a couple of weeks now, but I'm recording this voiceover the day before they are officially announced, which means that leaked images and info have made their way all around the internet by this point. Which is interesting, as it means I've been able to gauge public reaction to a product which hasn't been announced yet, and that reaction has been, well, let's say most people seem a little underwhelmed. Truth be told, that's kind of how I felt when AlphaTheta first showed them to me too. After all, as the name implies, this is more of an iPhone 6 versus iPhone 6S situation, back when Apple didn't pretend that their yearly updates are always really noteworthy. However, having spent time with the 3000X, I can tell you right out of the gate, these are indeed superior to the 3000s in a number of ways. There isn't a whole lot of new stuff, but what is there is generally very good, and there are some features which feel more like they're laying the groundwork for future workflows rather than being essential for today. Two things to say clearly before we begin. Firstly, the pricing. They are due to have a street price of around €2,800 or $3,000. That is higher than the CDJ-3000, but not massively so, and in these inflationary and uncertain economic times, basically what I would have expected. Let's be real, if you have the budget to be looking at these for a home setup along with a mixer to match, then you're unlikely to be quibbling about a couple of $100 here or there. And secondly, these don't have stems. Either onboard real-time analysis or pre-prepared ones like Engine now has. As someone who is all in on using stems, this is disappointing, but I'm also a realist and I just don't think today's hardware is ever going to be capable of doing them on the fly, although I'd love someone to prove me wrong. As for why AlphaTheta haven't gone down the pre-prepared route, I don't know, but they still haven't, at least for the time being. I'm going to start with some criticism around branding. Frankly, I don't love the product name. Using the letter X as a suffix feels like what you do when you haven't decided what to call the next version of a product, a placeholder name. AlphaTheta gave me some long-winded explanation of what it all means, but I still think they could have come up with something better. It's also an AlphaTheta CDJ-3000X, not a Pioneer DJ CDJ-3000X. And that does make sense. They are the same company, so whatever is happening with the Pioneer DJ brand long term, AlphaTheta is the new brand that they're pushing right now, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But, as I say, it's a new brand, one with limited name recognition, and instead of putting the word AlphaTheta and the logo across the back of the players in big white letters, they've decided to forego that in favour of just the logo, in grey. I would argue that one of the reasons that Pioneer DJ has become such a dominant name in the DJ equipment game is that across the world, the biggest DJs stand in front of that name in big white letters nearly every time they appear in public. And you don't just see the name once, usually it's there 4 times. It's such a prominent billboard, if you like, that some rental companies replace it with their own branding. The 3000s here in the lab have Beatsource logos on the back because yeah, it's a really great place to have it. So what the company have today with the 3000 is literally priceless marketing. You couldn't pay for it if you tried. And in fact, venues and PA companies buy the players, so people are giving them money to advertise their products on the biggest stages. But for the 3000X, at a time when AlphaTheta are trying to raise awareness of this new brand, they just said, pass. We won't bother. We'll just put our logo on there with no text and we won't even make it white to make sure it stands out. Someone please make it make sense because I certainly can't. Moving on to the product itself, and here I'm feeling rather more positive. The 3000X is a little larger than the 3000, although that's mostly in the screen which sticks out further at the rear. The body of the deck is the same length front to back, but a couple of centimetres wider. I'm not going to say that cases for the 3000s definitely won't fit, as many are designed to be fairly universal, but if 3000s are particularly snug in there, you might need new ones. When it comes to the hardware, that screen is the most obvious upgrade, and it's pretty lovely. Just a different class of display to the 9-inch resistive one on the 3000, which already felt a little dated 5 years ago. Here we have a proper capacitive touch display, much like the one on the Opus Quad. It's a 10.1-inch screen, so the same size as the Opus, and indeed the Denon DJ SC6000, although it looks smaller on there, an optical illusion. Watching my footage of the 3000X back, I'm afraid to say the camera is not doing the display justice. On video it doesn't look especially smooth, especially the scrolling waveforms, but they do actually look much better in person, a whole lot smoother than on the 3000. I will say this, the screen is bright, it's clear, and it's less quick to wash out when viewed from an angle, but AlphaTheta have done nothing to mitigate bright sunlight, making it unreadable on, say, a festival stage. If this was my product, I would have designed a special sunshade included in the box which would clip on perfectly for such occasions. Could even have put a big brand name on the back, but I'll shut up about that now. Connectivity has changed a little here, mostly in a positive direction. Around the back there's a locking IEC socket for power as found on the 3000. That's great, but in doing some side-by-side testing with the Denons, I do find it surprising that AlphaTheta haven't yet implemented a "do you really want to turn this off" screen when you push the power button. Seems like this is a product on which that could be potentially very useful. There are the usual stereo RCA sockets for analog output and a single one for the digital connection, as well as the Ethernet socket for Pro DJ Link, more on that later. But the big change is that the USB port to connect to your computer is now USB-C, which I know not everyone loves, but I'm glad to see it. It's just easier in 2025. HID mode support for rekordbox will be coming right from launch, as will Serato DJ Pro. I tried beta versions of both and everything was working very nicely, and I've no doubt that Algorithm's DJ, Traktor and Virtual DJ support will be along soon enough. These are the new flagship players after all. Up on top there's a change too. The regular USB-A port is still there, but the SD card slot is gone and has been replaced by a USB-C port. When I first saw this I was disappointed. For many years I was an SD card guy on CDJs. I liked how it was tucked away inside, the slots were usually available for easy DJ changeovers, and fast SD cards were always cheap. But on reflection, I think I'm okay with this. USB-C ports are standard issue on modern computers, and many USB-C thumb drives are incredibly fast, and honestly I rarely encountered anyone else using SD cards on CDJs. I even stopped doing so myself in recent years because I'm using more all-in-one XDJs at gigs than CDJs, and none of those have an SD card slot. So overall this is a change I'm happy with. What I'm less happy with is the port itself. I would have liked it to be recessed quite a bit more into the body of the deck, as everything I plugged into it sticks out way more than I would like, feeling rather precarious. USB-C being smaller than USB-A already feels more fragile, even if it isn't, and the port on here does nothing to allay concerns about it being knocked and broken, especially being so close to the controls. I would have preferred the rear slot to be the USB-C one instead of the front one. Something else new on the connectivity front is the addition of Wi-Fi alongside the existing Ethernet port and a new NFC near-field communication chip on the front of the CDJ. This is both very cool and also quite confusing. One thing to bear in mind, if you don't have a paid creative or professional plan for rekordbox, then very little of this will be of any relevance to you. This is all leveraging Cloud Direct Play, so if you don't have that, you can kind of ignore it. On the CDJ-3000, you needed to plug in a media device which had been authenticated with your rekordbox Cloud account in order to access Cloud Direct Play. On the 3000X, that requirement is bypassed. You can log in by holding your phone with the mobile rekordbox app next to that NFC chip, and the app will log you in. That is pretty slick, but in my testing, doing that logged me in on both players, giving me 2 possible instances of my cloud library at once, and I'd assumed 4 with 4 decks. This could get real confusing real quick. It's also rather strange that Pro DJ Link is still wired only, so to share a USB drive between CDJs or to connect with a mixer for synchronized effects, on-air jog lighting or link queue, you'll still need an Ethernet switch hooked up. And as far as I can tell, one CDJ can't share Wi-Fi with another, so even with that switch, you will still need to connect both players to Wi-Fi to use the cloud, at which point it just seems simpler to me to just connect the switch to the internet and not bother with Wi-Fi at all. Once set up and in the right account though, it's a very smooth experience. Not only can you pull files and metadata from your own cloud library, but any tracks you've added to your Rekordbox library from streaming services, Beatport in my case, and Tidal, will also have their metadata like grids and queues ready to go. Tracks are fully cached on loading, so play won't be interrupted in case of a loss of connection, and any changes you make, like adding a new hot queue, will be synchronized directly back to the cloud. There's also this very cool new feature called the Global Tag List, which works hand in hand with all this. Let me show you that. Right, I want to talk you through the NFC login and the cloud stuff on here, because this is one of the features where, you know, I was kind of unenthused about this thing in the first place, but then I've got to know this feature a bit better, and that's one of those things that's kind of, yeah, it's got me maybe a little bit more excited about this thing. So right now I'm booting up this player. I'm connected via Ethernet, but there's no USB drive attached at all. It's not connected to a computer. It's just a plain player connected to the internet, nothing else. We've then got cloud login. Now the first thing to note is that on the original 3000, until you put a USB drive in there, cloud login wasn't an option. You had to have a USB drive attached or an SD card to do the cloud thing at all. Now you don't, as I say, no media drives on this, just the internet. Hit login. Then we've got a QR code or the NFC thing. I have a beta version of the Rekordbox mobile app with this NFC in it. So I'm going to take this now and I'm going to hold it in front of the player. And then we get a little notification, Rekordbox NFC tag, open in Rekordbox. Open. And there we go. Now here we've got the cloud there. We're in the cloud. My account. We've got the cloud connected. Beatport. I do still have to log in. Now, the cool thing is I am authorized to tell you this, right? We are aware that this is a bit of a pain right now. That won't be the case for that much longer. Like at some point fairly soon, this will also authorize your Beatport login as well. But as of today, you do still need to log in here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pause the video, log in and come back. So now I'm logged into Beatport as well. So I've got the cloud and I've got Beatport all connected. The thing I'm going to show you here, which is really quite neat, is this global tag list, which is new, right? Now, if I had a USB stick attached, I would be with an authorized one. I'd be logged into the cloud, I'd log into Beatport, and I would have access to all three. But let's go into the cloud first of all. This is not my full library in the cloud. I've just uploaded some tracks into the Rekordbox cloud, and then I've got some Beatport tracks in there as well. So let's do that. Let's go into DJcityTV video beats, and then I'm just gonna go through. We can play these tracks. They're snappier to download now, and obviously they're analyzed because they're in my Rekordbox library. So it's pulling that analysis from the cloud. The cue points are all there from the cloud, etc. So nice and snappy for that. Great. And the same does apply as well to these tracks from Beatport. So I go back, stream tracks, hit one of these. There you go, load that up. It's pulling it down nice and quick. And again, the grids are already there. The cue points would be there if I had them. Pulling it all from the cloud, working really nicely. This is the interesting part. We have this global tag list now. So I can go in and I can tag a track. Just tag that one, and that one, and go into our tag list. So we can see that's our tag list for our specific source. But if we go then also out, so global, there we go, we've got the global tag list. Let's go back in and let's go just get a couple from that streaming the cloud service there. So tag that one, tag that one, tag that one, tag that one. All good. Go back into the tag list. Those are in there now as well. And you'll see, and we'll come back to this in a second, something else interesting is happening right here. So let's go back out to source. I'm going to go into Beatport as a source, and I'm going to go into one of the top 100s there. So bass/club. Go in there, and I'm going to hit the tag on a bunch of these. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now go back into that global tag list. Not only have they appeared there, but this is really neat. It's caching them now. So I don't have to load them. It's downloading them to the cache right this minute. So that means that if I go into that tag list, so again, this tag list contains tracks from Beatport that were in my Rekordbox library, tracks from my cloud library, and tracks that I've just added from Beatport itself. And they're all downloading to the cache. So when I load them, they do need to analyze these ones because I haven't played them in here before. But look at that. That is quick. That is quick, for sure. And so that means, because again, there's no USB sticks attached here. There's no drives attached to this. So there must be some form of like internal memory, some form of cache. I don't know how big that is. I mean, at one point earlier before doing this demo, I added like 50 tracks from one of those top 100s and they all went in there and they all cached. So that's pretty cool. And it does suggest that, yeah, there's some kind of internal storage here. Is there potential to do more with that internal storage? Is it just a couple of gigabytes maybe, you know, just for this up to 100 tracks or something? I don't know. I haven't like stress tested it yet. But the fact that you can throw in 50 tracks from a Beatport playlist and just have them all in there, cached and ready to play, that is pretty sweet. That is very sweet indeed. So let me go back out. And in fact, I'm going to do another stress test on this now, live on this video. This could go horribly wrong. I don't think it's designed to work in this way, but we're going to find out. So these are all downloading to the cache. This is it. This is live and direct. This is all happening in real time, right? I haven't tried this yet. I'm going to pull out the Ethernet cable. Wi-Fi is not turned on. I'm not connected to anything. I'm going to pull out the Ethernet cable. Ready? Let's go. Right. Ethernet is now pulled out. There is no connection to this player right now. Nothing. This is just purely on its own. Nothing else. There's an audio cable attached and nothing else. And, okay, it's loaded that track. Let's see. Is it going to fully load it? I mean, it's analysing it because it hasn't analysed it before. We've got the little warning symbol up there to say we're not connected. But that track is playing. Let's go back to that tag list, see if it, I mean, if this doesn't break very shortly, I'll be incredibly surprised. But let's see. I mean, this one is, it's analysing. And that's working. Let's see this one as well. I mean, so far it hasn't broken. As I say, I'm literally seat of the pants stuff here. So I wouldn't trust this. I wouldn't rely on this as like a thing. It's not like an official offline locker. But the fact that those are cached to that tag list, it means if you do lose connection for any reason, yeah, that is pretty cool. All of this is very clever, and as someone who plays a lot of streaming tracks from Beatport, it's very welcome. I do think though that for the target audience of this device, clubs and festivals etc, it's a bit early for it to see real adoption by users. It's actually still quicker to log into everything with an authenticated USB drive rather than using the NFC system, and anyway, I strongly doubt we'll see, say, Tiesto rocking up at a festival with no local music on his person at all in 2025. In 2030, well, it might be a different story. But yeah, this all feels like more of a glimpse into the future than an essential set of features for today. I mentioned the screen already, but there have been other hardware upgrades too. Some of them are purely functional. The internals of the play, pause and cue buttons have been redesigned and should be considerably more durable, for example. But others do offer quality of life improvements, with the biggest one being the jog wheel. The jog tension adjustment offers a much wider range on the X than it did on the 3000, so if you like it to feel super tight, you can get that, and if you want it super loose for spinbacks, you can have that too. I know lots of DJs could never quite get the 3000 jog feeling tight enough for their taste when doing long blends, especially as the mechanism loosened up over time, so this is going to be very welcome. In terms of the overall build quality, it feels much like any other CDJ, to be honest. At this point, we know they generally hold up very well. The amount of ancient CDJs still in use at venues I play is testament to that. When it comes to aesthetics, it's a mixed bag. The aluminium top panel looks and feels great, and in some respects I think the slightly more minimal look is classier, but I personally would have still preferred to see the markings on the pitch slider stick around. At least they didn't go full on Opus Quad minimalism on here, which I would have been really unhappy about. You can still generally see all of the info on the silk screen that you need to see. Let's talk about sound quality now. I wasn't able to take these out and try them on a big system for obvious reasons, but I've used and heard original 3000s out many times and they already sounded great. But here, in specs terms, the 3000X has received a pretty big upgrade with a new ESS DAC, digital audio converter, which has better specs than any that the company have previously used, with improved signal to noise ratio, channel separation and frequency response. Considering how good the DACs have been in recent Pioneer DJ and AlphaTheta products like the V10 and the Euphonia, I'm confident in saying these will sound great. AlphaTheta reckon they've tuned the voicing of the 3000X with feedback from a number of professional club sound engineers, and certainly streaming lossless FLAC Beatport tracks into the best analog rotary mixers I have on hand in the lab delivered very impressive results. It's not just about the DAC though. The 3000X also has a significantly upgraded power supply designed specifically for it, which should deliver improved sound quality not only through the analog output via the onboard DAC, but through the digital output too, although the differences there will be less noticeable as the final voicing will always be dictated by the DAC in the mixer. I do need to talk about performance. Firstly, I was never able to replicate the issue that James Hype had when jumping around hot cues on the 3000. He's discussed that many times, but AlphaTheta say that's been resolved. I guess we'll find out if he starts putting the 3000X on his rider instead of the 2000 Nexus 2. In other areas, well, I suspect that AlphaTheta must have put a more powerful MPU in the X to handle some of the more advanced cloud stuff, but to be honest, the 3000X doesn't feel a whole lot snappier in use than the 3000, if at all. With the pre-release firmware I've been using, they actually take a little longer to boot even. This is not really a complaint. I was already happy with the processing performance of the 3000, but if you're expecting some kind of quantum leap here, you won't find it, at least in my experience. You may notice we've got a long way into this video and I haven't talked about new performance features yet. Well, the truth is, there aren't that many. There are some which I will demonstrate, but it's worth remembering that the 3000 already did quite a lot of stuff and none of that has gone away. There are the 8 hot cues, the usual CDJ looping controls, beat loops, key shift and beat jump, touch preview for link queue, a feature which is apparently way more popular than I ever realised. All of this is still here. All the same settings options are there with a few more added, as well as the shortcut menu, track filter. Basically, if you have an existing workflow you're comfortable with on the 3000s, you'll be right at home on the X's. There are a couple of things I don't mention in the demo which are of note. The onboard beat grid adjustment has been expanded with a new halve and double BPM option so you don't end up doing a Grimes. And there's a new little eye symbol on the screen, so you can easily hide track information and artwork on exclusive unreleased tracks from prying eyes, what's known as AM mode in Serato DJ Pro after the late DJ AM. Now let's show you the rest of the new stuff. Right, there's not a whole lot new going on with the functionality here on the 3000X compared to the 3000, but there are a few things which are a little bit notable. First of all, they are leveraging this new display in a very cool way in terms of what you can actually see. In the medium and large fonts, you've got 12 tracks on the screen at once. If you go for the small font, you can see 16 tracks at once. And for me, that is an upgrade. You know, the more of your library you can see at the same time when you're browsing, the better as far as I'm concerned. So I do really like that. We've also got the edit functionality now. So we hit the edit button and we can put our finger on a track and we can drag it up and down in the playlist and reorder our playlist on the fly. This feels like a first step for this because all you can really do is either drag stuff around, or you can also delete tracks from a playlist, but you can't bring in tracks from another playlist at this stage or anything like that. So yeah, it feels like early days for that feature, but nonetheless, it's very cool. One thing to note, it will work with your cloud library and your local library, but if you're in Beatport, for example, I'm in there, this playlist in Beatport, there's no edit button there. So it will only work with your local and cloud stuff, but the changes you make will be synced back to your cloud library if you use cloud library. So that's cool from that point of view as well. As I say, a nice feature, just not quite, I think there's more they could do with that one as it goes through. We've also got a very nice feature indeed, copy and paste. So I can hold down on a track and I can copy that text, or I can open up this and I can just hold down on the artist name, copied text to clipboard, go into search, and then we paste. And there it is. So it's just quicker than having to type stuff in the search. If you want to find, a different version of a track or all the tracks by a certain artist, you can easily copy and paste from the main library into the search box. And that for me is definitely a winner. There is another feature with the queue, which I'll talk about, the smart queue. I'll show you that separately because you need to see the whole player. But we do have gate queue, and this is very, very neat. So we can turn on gate queue easily there from the screen. And normally with a CDJ, when you press the queue button, it just starts the track from that point. So a queue starts the track from that point, off it goes, right? But with gate queue turned on, it behaves more like Serato DJ Pro or something. So it only plays while you hold the queue down. So if you're doing finger drumming or tone plays and things like that, this could be a very useful feature, and it's just accessible right there on the touchscreen. Nice and simple, so a big fan of that one. We'll come back to Smart Cue separately. Then we've also got, if we go back out, we go to Browse Playlist, we hit the Playlist button. Then we've actually got our playlist banks here as well, so we can save a playlist to these 4 banks. That was first seen in the XDJ-RX3, and that's a great feature to have as well. If you want to access, 4 favorite playlists, just access them right from there. So yeah, not a whole lot of functionality stuff to look at, but pretty cool. The one last one is going to be the touch preview stuff. Now this is, this is kind of neat. I wasn't sure what this entailed in the beginning, but yeah, now I understand it. I really like it. So I'm going to play the track. So right now you're hearing the track that's playing out through the master output on the DJM A9 here. That's all going through just fine. I've also got link queue enabled though. You do need, one of the DJM mixers that has this, so the V10, the A9, the 900 Nexus 2, etc. Those with the link queue functionality. I've got link queue turned on here on the player, and that means that when I've got link queue turned on, if I touch any of these waveforms, and you're hearing that through my microphone there now, the track isn't playing. The track could be playing in the background. There it is. But I'm hearing that in the link queue, so the track is still playing away, and yeah, I'm playing in the link queue. But now we go back out, we've got the track loaded. Here we can now, and this is so clever. So let's say I've loaded this track and I've decided, oh, it's not, I want to kind of skip towards the end on this one. What you can do while it's playing, so it's still playing, it's coming through the master right now. I can go through, I can find a point, and I can add a new cue there. And so it's still playing from where it was. The track hasn't moved in the master output. I was hearing something different, and now I can jump to that cue point whenever I like. So it's especially going to be useful if you're playing, stuff from streaming or cloud or whatever. You don't have any cue points set on it. You can literally, again, it's still playing out through the master. You're just hearing the link cue through my mic now. I want to set one towards the end. I'm going to do that. There it is. So now the track is still playing through. I'm going to hit that cue point, and there it goes. That is a very, very neat feature, especially if you're playing stuff that you haven't worked with before, you haven't added cue points to. Yeah, that's a really, really cool one. Right, I've zoomed out quickly just to show you Smart Cue. This is something you turn on in the preferences. So you go to the utility and then you can choose Smart Cue on or off. This has come from the Opus Quad originally. That was the first place we saw it, I think. But it's really, really neat. So what this means is if I hit a hot cue's there, you can see the main cue button has turned red because hot cue A is red. And now if I hit the main cue button, that's going to go from number 1. If I then press hot cue C, you see the cue button has changed to green, and that main cue point has jumped there. Go to E, again, now the main cue point has jumped there. This is a slightly different workflow. If you've not used an Opus Quad or anything before, if you've only used CDJs, this will probably be new to you. But for me, it's a really nice way of working. I can just hit any cue I like. The button changes to tell me that I've chosen that particular cue. And off we go. We can jump straight from there. And that can be used obviously in tandem with gate cue. So I can just hit gate cue there, and then that's turned that cue point into that one. Yeah, Smart Cue. Neat feature. Very glad it's come here. There you go, a look at everything that's new in the CDJ-3000X. Pioneer DJ, or AlphaTheta in this case, have always been in something of a bind with their flagship players. I'm sure they'd really love to push everyone towards really innovative new workflows, but the reality is these devices need to feel comfortable for DJs who have been playing on older CDJs on the biggest stages for the past 25 years. So they always have to lean towards gradual evolution rather than making big swings. That's where devices like the Opus Quad clearly do serve a purpose. The company can be a lot more bold with those as a kind of testing ground for what might work in a CDJ. That's where Smart Cue has come from as an example. This means that for a real tech nerd like me, the flagship players never quite scratch the innovation itch in the way I might hope for. But do they do the job they're intended to? Absolutely. Transitioning from the 2000 Nexus 2 to the 3000 was easy for any DJ, and the same applies going from the 3000 to the 3000X. And let's remember, since the company moved to an MPU based system with the 3000, rather than everything being in firmware, we did see some pretty significant new features added to those players over time. So what the 3000X can do today might be just scratching the surface of what it can do in a couple of years' time. I'll keep you posted. So there you go, my thoughts on the CDJ-3000X. I remember being underwhelmed by the jump from the 2000 Nexus players to the Nexus 2 at the time. It felt pretty minimal. And in some respects, this update is even less immediately impactful. That's not to say the 3000X isn't a superb player. The 3000 was already great and the X is even better in a number of ways. Certainly when it comes to the tactile feel of it. If I was a CDJ user who could demand their own tech rider, the 3000X would be going on it immediately. But would regular 3000 still be acceptable to me as a second choice? At this stage, they totally would. There's not really much I can do in performance terms with the X that I can't do with the 3000. As the ability to use the cloud and streaming becomes more of an expected feature of pro DJ booths, that might well change, and certainly the integration of streaming in this player is much stronger than it was in the 3000. And as with the 3000, we may not be seeing the full potential of the 3000X right from launch. That previous model saw lots of cool updates after release, so there may be stuff coming for this model down the line which nobody knows about yet. Do I recommend the CDJ-3000X then? If you are already in the market for some 3000s, then yes, absolutely I do. If you already own 3000s and are considering whether to upgrade or not, I can't really tell you which way to go. If you're heavily into using streaming music, like me, then it's a yes for sure, but for everyone else, I'd be inclined to maybe wait and see if any more compelling new features come to these later on. In the comments, let me know your thoughts on the CDJ-3000X, the features, the changes, and the branding issue. I'd love to know what you think, so sound off down below. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beatsource Tech. If you liked it, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And hey, if you haven't already, you can try Beatsource for free and join DJcity for just $10. All the links are down in the description. I'll see you next time.